right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to our most recent Tuesday/Thursday talk because of some scheduling concerns. But this is part of our Tuesday talk series. Generally every Tuesday evening from 5:30 to 6:30, we offer some informational sessions that are particularly relevant to our adult learners here on campus. So that's generally our flagship Warrior Way Back program, those students, but that also includes returning warriors, that's students coming back to Wayne State after some time away, Phoenix students, the GPA forgiveness piece, and certainly transfer students, justice impacted students, military affiliated students, and also first generation students. A lot of those populations intersecting and really touching that adult learner piece. So welcome to everybody, and thank you for joining us today. So our agenda for today's program, we're going to do some quick introductions of the team. Not everyone is here, but I do want you to see their faces at least in a photo. So if you do have questions later, you know who your adult learner success team is. Then I'm going to hand over to the guest presentation. We'll do a quick wrap up at the end with some next steps as well. So this is our adult learner team. My name is Amber Neer, as in FAR. I am the adult learner advisor, as well as the advisor for the Warrior Way Back program. I organize these Tuesday talks as well as a variety of other things focused on adult learners here on campus. And then I'm going to let Chloe Lundeen introduce herself as well.
Hi, my name is Chloe Lundeen. I'm the adult learner liaison. My role is primarily being the first point of contact for students who are considering coming back or attending Wayne State for the first time. Also managing our Facebook and Instagram pages and sort of managing the social side of what we do for our adult learners. I also provide some administrative support to the team as well.
Thanks, Chloe. And then I have a spooky picture of a person on here, but that's just we are hiring again another adult learner advisor, so somebody else to support our team. So hopefully somebody will be joining us in the next few weeks. And then James Hearn is our adult learner career coach, so all things related to job searching, especially for the adult learner who is maybe making a career transition. If you're looking for a position, a career change while you're pursuing your education here, wrapping that up. If you're thinking more of like that pivot after you've earned your bachelor's degree, what that looks like mid-career, resume help, all those things, interview skills. James is just a great life coach too. So I always recommend everybody connects with James to learn more about those resources. So today our guest presenter is Robin Dover from the Campus Health Center. She's a social worker. I'll let you actually introduce yourself, Robin.
Thanks, Amber. Hi, all. Like Amber said, my name is Robin Dover, and I am a licensed social worker and embedded at the Campus Health Center as a CAPS counselor. So I work under the umbrella of both CAPS and Campus Health Center, but all my work takes place out of Campus Health Center. And at Campus Health Center, I am doing individual counseling and providing screening and assessments for mental health concerns. And I'm talking with people all the time about stress and anxiety. And that's what we're going to be chatting about today. And I look forward to doing that.
Thank you. So whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and share your screen and start the presentation. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll get my slides up, and I'm also going to let someone know not to pop into my office during this time. So give me 1 moment.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, let me get those slides up. All right, can you see my screen? Great, thank you. All right, so like I mentioned in my introduction, today we are going to talk a bit about stress and anxiety and some campus resources that are available when students are experiencing stress and anxiety. Let's see. All right, and why are we talking about stress and anxiety today as we're getting this talk started? And one of the reasons is because stress and anxiety is directly related to our mental health, and maintaining our mental health while in college can feel pretty daunting, especially if we are a working adult, or if we're an adult learner that has a lot of competing demands. It can feel really heavy to try to focus on our mental health and manage all the things at the same time. But our mental health influences our mood, and it influences our behavior and our thinking, which ultimately also impacts our physical health and our relationships, and ultimately our ability to perform in our school setting as well. So it's really important that we stay vigilant about our psychological and our emotional well-being, and that we get help if we need it. So we're going to go through some of that today, and I'll share some resources for help at the end as well. So I wanted to include a little bit of info here about what we know about adult learners and about their mental health as well. And we know that adult learners make up a large portion of the student body. So about 40% of college students are adult learners, which means it's really important that we support adult learners and make sure that we're providing services to them that are relevant and will help them to succeed. As it relates to mental health, we know that adult learners are reporting higher numbers of experienced stress and anxiety when we compare that to the traditional student, maybe 18 to 24, who's just starting out with school. So some of the reasons why adult learners might have higher reported numbers of stress and anxiety is because some of those competing demands that were briefly just talked about. 70% of adult learners are enrolled in both school and employed in a job. So managing both of those things can be pretty stressful, whether that job is part-time or full-time, or school is part-time or full-time. Managing both can be a heavy task. And 48% of adult learners have dependents, so they may be caring for children or caring for loved ones, and that adds an additional stressor, additional something to focus on that demands their attention and contributes to stress in their lives. So I want to take a step back and start to understand what stress is for just a moment. So what is stress? So stress is a natural response to a perceived threat. So our bodies are hardwired to react to stress in ways meant to protect ourselves against threats from predators or other aggressors. Such threats are pretty rare these days, but that doesn't mean that our life is stress-free, and our body interprets our everyday stressors as threats, which increases our stress. Because we face so many demands every day, like those large workloads with managing school and work, both managing finances and paying our bills, taking care of our family, all of those, as I mentioned, can be interpreted as threats. And because of that, we can feel in our bodies like we're under attack. And any of those events can make us feel frustrated or angry or nervous at any given point in time, which is also contributing to our level of stress that we're experiencing. With stress, it's important to note that there are a couple types of stress, and one type of stress is acute. And with acute stress, our fight or flight responses are activated, which happens in response to imminent dangers. So if you imagine like being encountered by a growling dog on your walk to class, for example. That might be a threat to your physical danger that puts you in a fight or flight response mode, meaning that you might have to seek safety and retreat to make sure that you're feeling safe. And we might experience things like our heart rate increasing, having a rapid heart rate or rapid breathing, having flushed skin, feeling sweaty, shaky. These are some signs of stress under that acute stress response. The other kind of, I forgot to mention that is usually a short-term response to stress. We usually are experiencing that in the moment, and when the stressor goes away, that response starts to change and we start to calm down. The other form is chronic stress, which can be a little bit more long-term. We might have chronic stress surrounding things like financial concerns, maybe troubles at work or troubles in school. And this is happening over a long period of time. A long period of time might be weeks or months where we're continuously feeling stress, making that a chronic concern. We can sometimes become so used to chronic stress because it's gone on for so long that we don't realize always that it's a problem. So it's really important that we try to pay attention to some of the cues that come up when it comes to being stressed, and we'll talk about what those look like a little bit. And just a little trivia question I may have just alluded to, but true or false, people can become numb to stress. And that is true. We can be physiologically experiencing stress, yet mentally we think we're fine because we've become accustomed to that stress. We become so adapted to our daily pressures and irritations and annoyances that we experience in our lives that it can start to feel normal. But when stress, these small stressors are accumulating quickly, we may not realize how much they're impairing our mental and our emotional clarity. It might show up in different ways, like maybe we overreact to something that happened, or we make a poor decision that we later regret and realize that we did that as we were in a state of stress. Those are just a couple of things to look out for. We'll talk about a couple more as well. But this is a reason why it is important to manage our stress, along with the impact that stress has on our bodies as well. And the impact that stress does have on our bodies can be reflected here. So stress releases hormones. So stress hormones like cortisol impact our brain. It makes our brain become more alert. Cortisol impacts the muscles in our body. It can cause our muscles to tense, and it increases our heart rate and our pulse as well. As was kind of mentioned earlier, some of these responses can be helpful because they can help us to get out of dangerous situations as we recognize them there. And they can serve as a way of our body protecting itself. And as I mentioned as well, our response to stress is limited usually to that perceived threat being present. So as the threat goes away, or we handle maybe one of the stressors that we're experiencing, those stress hormones start to decrease and return to normal levels. When we're experiencing chronic stress, so that stress that goes on for a long period of time, it can increase our risk for health concerns or health problems, as our body is not allowed to rest and rejuvenate in the way that it needs to. So in that slide, in the picture, you can see some ways that stress affects different parts of our body. And it can lead to things like high blood pressure over time, heart disease, diabetes, depression, anxiety, skin problems, immune and reproductive problems. So stress can have impacts on our entire body and our entire well-being, which is, again, another reason why it's important for us to try to recognize stress as it comes up and to try to manage it in ways that we can. This is very similar to anxiety. So anxiety, in much the same ways, impacts our body as stress does. And stress can lead to anxiety, and anxiety can lend to stress. And there can kind of be a vicious circle with that sometimes. So what is anxiety? Anyway, what does that look like? And anxiety is a feeling of apprehension or anxiousness or a feeling of worry that can typically occur without a genuine threat. And it differs from fear, which is our body's response to immediate dangers. So we might not have that immediate danger there when it comes to anxiety. And anxiety can accompany feelings of helplessness or hopelessness. And it can also come up when we're feeling a lack of control within our environment. Anxiety is a part of our body's natural reaction to stress. So much like stress, there are times where it might be helpful for alerting us to have a call to action, but it can also be harmful or problematic as well. Anxiety disorders and regular anxiousness are absolutely two different things. Anxiety is a typical feeling that all of us feel from time to time. And we might feel that when we're faced with particular situations that involve stress. But when those feelings don't subside and anxiety is more chronic, like stress can be too, that is when we might consider if there is an anxiety disorder, as well as if those feelings of anxiety that involve fear, nervousness, inabilities to control worry, if those are impacting our daily life, those are times where we might consider if anxiety is present more prevalently in a way that might consider a diagnosis or require additional help. So some common symptoms of anxiety. Some ways it might show up include feeling irritable or restless or tense. We might have increased heart rate when we're feeling anxious as well, which might cause us to breathe more rapidly. We might experience sweating or shaking. We might feel more tired or exhausted. We might have trouble concentrating on something or thinking about something other than the worry that is coming from our anxiety. When we're feeling anxious, we might be having trouble sleeping, or we might be experiencing some gastrointestinal concerns as well. It can also present in ways that look like avoidance or look like procrastination with things. So you can see here that a lot of these symptoms might also be comparable to symptoms of stress itself. So much like stress, anxiety shows up in our mood, it shows up in our behavior, and it shows up in our bodies. So we can look to all of those areas to try to recognize if we're feeling stressed or if we're feeling anxious. So where might some of that stress and that anxiety come from, particularly for adult learners? Why, is this so impactful? Some things that we see is that adjusting back to being a student can be overwhelming. It can take some time to get into the swing of things, to learn that role again, to learn how to fit that role into your life with all the other demands that you have. So getting back into that routine that involves going to class and studying and managing all of that can take some time and be quite an adjustment. There might be some struggles in coming back to school and relating to traditional students. So you might feel like you're in a different part of your life, or might feel more serious about schooling or studies as you've returned to school. You might feel more focused or intentional, and have a hard time connecting with students that have other interests, or are immersed into the on-campus or college life, when you might be more focused on the schooling aspect and studies. That can cause some concerns and struggles. Going back can also involve learning new technologies as things change, and learning new systems as things change at the university as well. And that can be a challenge. Like we mentioned earlier, for adult learners, you're likely managing multiple demands. So you're going to school, you might have a family, you might have a job, and all of these things are taking your time and attention. So you have more life demands, but the same college expectations, the same amount of rigor is expected of you, and that's a lot to juggle. With that, there can be some scheduling and time constraints. So with trying to balance everything, how do you fit it into the schedule? There might be resources or things that you need to access that are available during typical 9-to-5 business hours. And maybe that is, hard to access a resource because you work during that time. Or maybe you're taking care of kids or someone at that time. There are other barriers that come into play that make scheduling and time with managing all the demands difficult as well. And there can be financial burdens as well. School itself can be very expensive, and coupling that with managing finances for families, for housing, for basic daily needs can be a lot and can be stressful for many. So we've talked a little bit about what stress is. We've talked a little bit about what anxiety is. We've identified what it can look like, how it can show up in our lives. And we've talked a little bit about where stress and anxiety can come from. So now that we know that, what do we do about it, right? We've identified that it can be problematic. So how do we help? So here are some tips that we can go over for managing stress and anxiety while in college. So when it comes to school itself, a couple of things that we can do. One is trying to become a master of time management. Not that we necessarily need to master it, but time management is something that can be helpful in reducing stress and anxiety. So when it comes to schoolwork, setting strict school schedules and dedicating time for school can be really helpful. So if you know what you need to do and when you need to do it, you can more easily hold yourself accountable. And if we plug that time into calendars and actually plan it and write it down, we can see where we're fitting that into our time and where we're balancing that with other aspects of our life as well. And that can make us feel a little bit better. It can help us to see that we're taking small steps toward achieving success. So for example, if we decide that we are dedicating maybe 8 to 10 every night to study or do schoolwork, we could write that on a calendar in a planner and have that time set aside. Something else that can be helpful in addition to setting that time aside is letting people know that we are setting that time aside to do those things. So we can let our family members know. We can let our friends know. We can let coworkers know. That way they know what we're doing around those times, and we might not be bothered or might not have to worry about missing out on other events because our loved ones can respect where we're at when it comes to our dedicated school time. So it's good to share. what our plans are and how we're spending our time. And in that, the planning it and writing it out, like I mentioned, is important and can help us with accountability. If we know when we're doing it, we know when we can try to get started. Another thing to think about with time management is giving yourself enough time. So for many of us, we can tend to really underestimate the amount of time that it takes to complete a task. So that's something we want to think about when it comes to scheduling in our schoolwork and managing due dates, which can be stressful when we think about how we're going to meet them. So making sure that we're giving ourselves enough time and planning ahead, plugging our assignments and exams into a schedule that allots for wiggle room to get to those tasks and demands can really be helpful. So we want to make sure we're scheduling things in a way that makes sense when it comes to time. Something else when it comes to school work itself that we can think about, and not just schoolwork, but school in general, is in pacing ourselves. And this kind of piggybacks on some of the time management piece, but we want to be realistic about what we can achieve. So this could be with tasks such as homework and setting aside some time to start something, start maybe a piece of an assignment and moving into the rest, making sure that it's realistic and achievable. It could also focus on school in the larger picture. So it could look like only taking as many courses as you can commit to. So not putting too much on your plate when you might not be able to accommodate that with other demands as well. So we definitely want to think about being realistic and starting small. And for starting small, we know that we can gradually add. So it can be difficult sometimes. We can think about how if we take more classes, maybe we'll get finished quicker and get to our degree quicker. But we could also get burnt out in that process. So we want to make sure that we're starting small and starting from a manageable place and adding as we go if we see that we have more capacity. And similarly to achieving our school work throughout the semester, making sure that we're starting in places that are manageable and going from there. And then when it comes to doing our work, it can be helpful to change our pace a little bit if things aren't working. So if we've made plans and are having a hard time, sticking with that at some point, or having a hard time focusing, switching up our routine a little bit can be helpful. Because routine, while it provides familiarity and a sense of stability, doing the same thing day in and day out can sometimes feel tedious and it can sometimes feel boring. And it can be helpful for us to break up the monotony. But we want to think about doing that in ways that are helpful for us. So that might look something like moving things around in our study area or moving to a different study area. So we're still keeping that study time on the calendar, but we're switching up what our environment looks like. It might mean that we, in nicer weather, are taking things outside to change up that environment. It might mean that we're being mindful about taking breaks, and in breaks we're doing things that we enjoy and things that are going to hopefully spark energy for us to get back on task and to make things feel manageable in the long run. Adding into that a little bit more, something that we can do is to try to reframe the way that we set our goals. So many students might find it motivating to keep their sights on the end goal. So graduating with a degree or kickstarting their career, getting to that point. And it is good to remind ourselves of that overarching motivation and end goal. but it can also be useful for us to segment that goal into smaller and more realistic goals along the way. When we have continuously lofty goals, sometimes we are not seeing what we're achieving, and it can be discouraging and can make us want to quit. But if we are setting small goals and achieving those, it can be motivating to keep going. So this is also piggybacking off of that last slide, where we can start small with things like assignments, and say we're going to complete maybe 3 pages of studying, or I'm sorry, 3 pages of reading, or 15 minutes of studying. And that gives us a place to start. And when we've achieved that goal, we feel good and we feel motivated, and we want to do a little bit more along the way. So focusing on the smaller elements that are going to get us to our bigger goal, where it's assignment to assignment, class to class, semester to semester, moving out into that larger goal. A little bit more on the personal side of things, some things we can do to manage stress and anxiety are making sure that we have a strong support system. So making sure that we are connecting with our friends and loved ones. If we have the ability to bring in new connections, to foster new connections, we can do that by, joining groups or getting involved. And I know that can be hard to think about, as time is often something that we can feel like we don't have enough of. But engaging in new groups and places can help to foster connections that make us more energized and make us feel more balanced, which relieves the stress and anxiety, and can actually lend to us doing well with our studies and staying focused and not feeling burnt out. So we definitely want to think about finding a handful of people who are cheerleaders, who are our accountability partners, who, if we're having self-doubts or feeling discouraged, we can lean into for support, and they can help remind us why we went back to school, or why we're pursuing the degree that we are, pick the field of study that we did. So it's really great to tune into our support systems for that support. So letting them know what we're going through is really important. So that's these bottom 2 portions here. So we want to make sure we're scheduling time for our loved ones, for those that make up our support system, and make sure that we're talking to them so that they can offer us the support that we need. And then something else we can do is prioritize our self-care. It's really easy to get caught up in all of the demands that we have, and forget to make time for ourselves to take care of ourselves. But self-care is a really important factor in managing stress and managing anxiety. When we're practicing self-care, it can help us to feel calmer, it can help us to feel more energized, it can help us to feel rejuvenated. These are all really great aspects that can help us when it comes to staying engaged in school and not feeling burnt out, and ultimately being successful. So when we are making time for ourselves and practicing self-care, that can look a lot of different ways. For some people, that might look like taking a bath. For some people, that might mean reading a book, might mean lighting a candle and just relaxing. It might mean engaging in some mindfulness activities. So it's doing things like a meditation or a body scan or yoga. Whatever it is that resonates with you personally is absolutely something that we should try to make some time for in our schedules, knowing that it's going to have a positive impact on our stress and on our anxiety. Something else to think about under self-care is fitness. So exercise and an exercise routine can help us to regulate our mood as well, and can help us to temper anxiety. I mentioned meditation and yoga already, and those can act as some really great stress relievers. And something that we often forget about too is nutrition. So maintaining a healthy diet is also important when it comes to managing our stress and managing our anxiety. And finally, another element of self-care is the idea of giving ourselves some grace and talking to ourselves in a positive way. So we talked a second ago about having a support system that can serve as a cheerleader for us, but we can also be our own cheerleaders and, build ourselves up with positive self-talk. Remind ourselves that, even though things might feel overwhelming, that we can do it, right? We're going to break it up and tackle those demands. It might mean saying positive things about ourselves with schooling, like, I am smart, I am capable. These are just a couple examples of some pieces of positive self-talk that are helpful in building us up and helping to prioritize our well-being. And finally, something that we can do to manage stress and manage anxiety is to seek help. So if you happen to be doing a lot of these things and are still struggling, if you are just simply having concerns with anxiety, having concerns with stress, things are feeling overwhelming, or maybe you're in a place where you're not knowing where to start with some of those concerns, or maybe just wondering how much stress is impacting you, or if anxiety is at a more intense level than it may be for others. Seeking mental health support from a professional can be really beneficial. A mental health professional can work with you on developing strategies to cope with both stress and anxiety, and can really help to alleviate some of the impact that stress and anxiety might be having on your day-to-day life. Along with helping to cope with stress and anxiety, mental health professionals can also help with prevention. So a really big thing that I just want to point out is that mental health support, seeing a counselor, it does not have to be a last resort. There are things that you can do to equip yourself to handle stress in its manageable spaces and handle anxiety when it's lesser, to prevent it from becoming overwhelming and from really interfering with your day-to-day life. So a mental health professional can help you at any step along the way, and definitely encourage reaching out if stress or anxiety is something that you're worried about, or if it's something that you're experiencing. So some places that you can reach out. On campus, there is Campus Health Center, where I'm located. And here in Campus Health, we do screening and assessment for anxiety, and we do talk a lot about stress. And with both, we talk about ways to cope, ways to prevent, and can provide individual services for both stress management and anxiety. CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services, is also on campus for students in very similar ways. CAPS provides individual counseling as well as group counseling for students that might be experiencing a great deal of stress or who might be experiencing anxiety. They also have a Let's Talk program that you can drop into. It is a non-clinical service, but a counselor is available if you just want to maybe touch base with somebody and ask them questions about your stress, or ask them if something sounds like anxiety. That's a great place to kind of pop in and ask some of those questions. I have their website here for CAPS, and the Let's Talk schedule is available there. There's drop-ins each day, different times each day, but someone's available during the hours listed to talk with you. And that website is there if anyone wanted to schedule an appointment with CAPS. You go straight to their website and request an initial consultation. Backtracking a moment for CHC, for Campus Health Center, their phone number and website are available. You can call and make appointments for Campus Health, or you can schedule online at the website. And for both Campus Health Center and counseling and psychological services, those are services that are offered Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But MHOC, Mental Health and Wellness Clinic, is included on this slide, also on campus. It is a counseling clinic out of the College of Education, and they may be able to provide evening hours that may be more accommodating to a variety of schedules. They can provide individual counseling as well. And finally, I wanted to include some crisis services, just in case any concerns arise with stress and anxiety that really intensify and might lend to any concerns for self, concerns for safety. Sometimes those feelings can really intensify to places of self-harm. And in any of those cases, either the campus after hours line is a great resource, or the National Suicide Prevention line, which is 988. During regular hours here on campus, anyone at Campus Health Center or CAPS can assist with any crisis as well. So there are a lot of resources that are available for everyone to talk about stress, to talk about anxiety, and we would be more than happy to help you. I do have my question slide here. I am open for questions, and then I will have my contact information on the last slides if anyone does need to contact me with maybe additional questions, or for any questions about services or connection to services, I can support with that as well.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What are the costs associated with some of the campus services?
That's a great question. So I'll actually jump back. So the middle two, so counseling and psychological services and mental health and wellness clinic, are completely free for students. So those are free and confidential services. For Campus Health, also confidential services. However, at Campus Health Center, billing information for your insurance company is obtained. And if you have mental health coverage, your insurance company will be billed. But for anybody that does not have mental health coverage under their insurance, or who may not have insurance at all, Campus Health Center will work with you on payment, and in many cases will be able to cover costs, so there are no out-of-pocket costs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
This has been super informative. Like, I feel like this was like really spot on. And I feel like I learned a lot, and this is going to be an excellent resource moving forward. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. If there's ever anything that I can clarify or provide additional information on, please do not hesitate to reach out and let me know. And I will pop over to that last page. So there's my contact information. If you do have any additional questions or needs, please reach out to me. I can be reached at either my main email or at the second email, which is rdover@Nursing Practice Corporation, which is my Campus Health Center email. I'm fully accessible at both. And then my direct line is provided here as well. And I also included the information for Campus Health Center here too. So as I mentioned, I am more than willing to provide any support that anyone may need moving forward. I do a lot of connection with students in terms of getting counseling, whether that's in Campus Health Center, at CAPS, at another campus center, or at a community location. So I can help anybody get connected to services if they need them, and can talk with anybody about either stress or anxiety if they are concerns that you have.
The session's recorded, so then we'll have this available moving forward as well. And then I'm just going to have, let's see here, share some quick follow-up slides. Can you see my screen? Okay, because it doesn't have the little like rectangle around it, so I was concerned, but I'm glad that you can see it. So this is wrapping up our September sessions for the Tuesday talks. So moving, I can't believe it, already next week into October. So this session will be on Tuesday, and that one's on transfer credit for adult learners. So whether that means having transfer credit before you come into the university or thinking about reverse transfer, there's some great opportunities there that may not have existed before you came to Wayne State. So we're going to have our transfer advisor, Doug Peacock, here to do that session. He also has some really good insight into just generally adult learners. That's coming up next week. We have a scholarship session the second week of October. That's always a really popular one. That's with Daisy Cordero, our financial aid officer. Some good insight into how to apply for scholarships at Wayne State outside of the traditional FAFSA, and what kind of timeline that is to apply any potential scholarships to. So some great sessions through the end of the semester still. Be sure to join us. Let's see here. I also wanted to provide some contact information for us. There's Doug, who I just mentioned. So if you do have some follow-ups for different populations here on campus, these are our major touch points. So there's my contact information again. Doug is for our transfer students. Jaime Lopez works with our military affiliated students, so veterans, active duty, dependents, all of the above, everything military affiliated. Jaime is a great resource. And Terrell Tops works with our justice impacted students. And so we partner on a lot of different initiatives there. So if you feel so inspired, please reach out to these folks, all very supportive. That's all I have. Looks like we're just a touch over time. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Robin. And we'll see you next time.